Okay, so as I said, it's file, import, and then import to library. You might have to create an account if you haven't already on that, Bradley. So sounds have probably gone to downloads. You can select them all at once, click open, it will import them and it will send them to the library, which is just over here. What we're going to do, if I can work, is to give them a name that we can use as a reference. So when you created the linkage name, Ben, that's what we're going to do. It's so we can call a sound. So it helps if we follow the convention. Essentially what we're doing is we're creating what's known as a class. A class is a blueprint, something that can be reused. It's like a definition, and it's used in games and in programming generally. And this is the simplest example of that. So the name standard is you always use a capital letter for the name for a class name. So this linkage is essentially that. So if I put fox with a capital F there, and if I put frog with a capital F, and if I put lion with a capital L, and all I'm doing there is giving it a name that I can refer to it with. Save your file, save it locally. What that means is don't save it on your My Documents. Save it on C or D drive. The reason for this is because Adobe really don't like long network paths, and especially when it comes to working with Animate, because when you test a new files, they quite often break, workload, or they just lag really badly because they're going to the network and coming back. So work locally, or even work on a removable drive like a pen drive. That would probably be the best thing, because then you can move about a bit. So I'm just going to save this as animals test 1. This means that when I test that file, what it'll do is it will create a shockwave flash file which can be played in Flash Player when we test it. So currently we just got a blank screen. What I'm going to do is introduce you to working with some code straight at the off. Now there's 2 ways of working with code. I'm going to show you the easiest way to get introduced to it is to work directly in this file, but eventually what we'll do is we'll have code files separate from our graphics files. So in the timeline, what I like to do is I like to double click on the layer name that I'm going to put my code into and call it actions, because the language is called ActionScript. That means that that layer is going to contain all of my code. I want it all in one place. I want to know where it is. And to access actions, I have to press F9. I can also find it in window. If any of your panels or inspectors are missing, press go to window and look through here. So actions is there. Some of them have got shortcut. Now, it should give you some code hints, but when I was testing it last night on this operating system, it wasn't giving me code hints. So I'm hoping it will treat you nicely on your profiles. What that means is it kind of helps you see what you're supposed to be typing. So we created a sound by putting it into the library, and we created a sound class by giving it a linkage name. All I'm going to do is then make that sound work using code. And the reason we use it, we do it using code is because in a game we need to be able to call sounds as and when we need them. This is kind of like the done thing, is to use sampled sounds. Although when you went to the conference the other week, you may remember Curtis talking about using procedural sounds as opposed to bitmap sounds like this. That's another whole other conversation. So I'm going to put in the keyword var. I'll just make this text bigger so you can read it. Did you manage to get logged in?
No.
Right. Charlie, could you email your sound files to Bradley, please? I'm just going to make my text bigger. Okay, can you make that out at the back, or is that still a little bit small? Okay, I mean there might be some characters that you struggle with. Colon, semicolon are often difficult to read from distance. So var, this is a keyword. It stands for variable. All a variable is a piece of information that's stored somewhere. So think of it as a box that contains information. The type of information that can be contained can be anything. It can be an entire graphic, it can be a sound, it can be a bit of text, it can be a number. And they're the common types that we will use when it comes to building games. So var, and then let's call it new raw, if you've got a lion sound, that is. And after that name, I'm going to tell it what type of data I want to use. So var new raw. Have you got a lion sound, Charlie? Mm-hmm. Good. And yeah. So you'll need to download those or save those files, Bradley, and then we'll get you importing them in a minute.
Is that called my lion sound line? Should I put new line?
It's up to you. And this name is a bespoke name that we give when we're using it so we can refer to it in code. We only use the keyword lion once, really, when we first create it. New raw, after the colon, so that's, you know what a colon is, 2 dots on top of each other. I then put lion, because I've called my sound lion. And that equals new lion, followed by brackets. It's creating a new, what's known as an instance. Every time we put something into the game, it's a new instance. Or every time we drag something onto the stage, it's an instance. We'll look at instances again in a bit when we do some actual graphics. What we have to do then is basically add it properly to the display list. So I will add child, because this is going to be a child of the main stage. So in essence, the game itself is one big variable that contains loads and loads and loads of graphics, sounds, scripts. So that's open brackets, new raw. So you might not need to do that. And then new raw dot play. And we're hoping that when we test this, we will hear the sound. Fingers crossed. So then I'm going to... Okay, just 2 ticks and I'll come and help you catch up. Control and enter. Right then. Just give me 2 ticks. You can get rid of the add child line, because what add child does is add something to the display list, so it's something that's visible. So we don't need that line for this. Sorry, it's been a while. So it's just those 2 lines, and that plays it. And every time we wanted, then once we've instantiated the lion sound to play, we would just put new raw.play, and so we could base that on, say, every time we come close to a character that's a lion, it roars at our character, something like that. Okay, so what I want you to do is to create 2 other files, or just in the same file, basically do the same thing for your 2 other sounds. Make them sound. If you do it in the same file, they'll all sound at the same time pretty much, with like a microsecond delay. Or if you do it in separate files, then you've got each sound playing separately. So that's step 1. You've got 10 minutes to achieve that, and I'll just go and help Bradley catch up.